Okay, now that we got the main ribs hooked to the front spar, we're starting on the rear spar. And the rear spar is just a piece of 3/4 by 1/8 inch 6061 T6 aluminum. Now, needs to be, start out with an 8-foot piece, needs to be a little bit over 83 inches long. So I've put in the 1/4 inch holes that will mount to the outer wing when it's installed. Now I need to measure and get the actual outside length, trim off both ends. Then we will come in and cut it back here and radius it. After we get that cut and radiused, we can start working on the holes for the skin and where it mounts to the ribs. Because I think I'll mount this to the back of the ribs and get it all positioned like it needs to be. Then there is a center small little half bulkhead that hooks in the middle here that fastens it to the floor of the fuselage. All right, we've got the holes drilled. We've got both ends cut off to the right length. Now I've marked where that needs to be notched out. We'll go in and I will cut it with the bandsaw, leave it a little wide, and then we'll go back with the flap wheel and smooth it. Radius the corner, polish everything, knock the corners off here, make it round. Definitely make it nice and slick. No stress risers, not a good place for a stress riser. Got the ends of the rear spar trimmed up. Slicked them up. I'll polish them more later, but they're fine right now. I've got it in there. Trying to figure out how to line everything up. The way this works is when the bottom skin is on, it comes from the front spar down the bottom, comes up, got a bend there, comes up, and then another bend and lays flat on top of this. And then the upper skin starts there and goes on top to the front spar. Now, there will be 3 rivets on each rib. And there'll be 3 rivets total. One goes through the spar and the skin into the back of the rib. The others just go through the skin into the rib. So right now I need to get this all centered up. So I think what I'm going to do is, this spar is within a couple of 1/8 of an inch, the same length as this one. And of course this one is shorter than the bottom one to give the wing dihedral when it's put all together. So I'm going to measure in how far my rivet is here. Do the same thing back here. Drill the hole for the rivet. Go ahead and cleco it on there. Do the same on the other side. And then we'll go through and measure each other rib. Duplicate it back here and get everything clecoed to the back of the ribs. And then I can go through. There'll be rivets across here. There'll be rivets across the top once it's done. But once I've got the ribs where I want them, everything's centered up, then I'll go back and drill those holes. But the main thing is to keep the ribs lined up and everything squared up. All right, the rear spar is fastened to the back of the ribs. Everything looks straight and square. Or I should say everything measures straight and square. I did, in the last video, I mentioned some of my ribs had a little bow to them, and I was just going to straighten them out when I put the skin on. I straightened them out now because it was just messing with me visually as I'm measuring, and once you start getting these in line, if they're bowed, it just throws everything off. So I took them out, which is just a couple of clecos, but I went and put them on the bench. It was just a little stretching here and there, shrinking, whatever it needed to get it lined up straight. And I would definitely get them as straight as possible before you do anything else, because it just messes with you visually. So next thing, C1 bulkhead. This is one of the bulkheads. I bought a bulkhead kit from Hummel when Terry Hallett still owned the place. And so I didn't have to build these bulkheads by hand. I had to, of course, fold the tabs and form them, but they were built. They were cut out, laser cut out, whatever, like this. So this one goes in there. I'm not sure what the top set of rivets is. It should rivet to the rear spar there, and then fold these forward and rivet it to the floor of the aircraft. I'll have to dig through the plans and figure out what these other holes are for, because I'm not sure. All right, I pulled out the rear spar, drilled a hole in the exact center of it, and we have the little bulkhead there clamped on to it, and it is pre-drilled. Got some holes right there that are in the center of it. Now my hole that I drilled is over this way a little bit, the way it's setting, and then when you measure the ribs with the square, they're tilted out that way some, both sides. So sliding the spar over should line up the center hole and square up the ribs. Once I got that, then I can drill that one hole from the spar back through the bulkhead and get everything lined up, and then go ahead and drill the rest of the holes through the spar and the bulkhead. And then once that's square, I can start drilling down through the fuselage so I can mount the bulkhead to the fuselage. And I'll probably go ahead and rivet that and just cleco, keep the bulkhead clecoed to the spar. All right, that actually lined up just perfect. Pulled that center hole on this bulkhead to the center hole that I had drilled in the rear spar. That lined up all the ribs just fine when, you know, this is centered in the bottom of the fuselage. Right now, I'm going to go ahead and finish drilling across here. Now, it's got 2 lines of rivets from the factory. This is the 1-inch set, and that's what I need here. So I'll drill the ones they've already got punched, and then I'll go in between each one and add extra rivets there, or extra clecos. And then I'll put this back in the aircraft, cleco this to the spar, and then drill the tabs through the bottom of the fuselage. All right, we have that little bulkhead mounted in there, clecoed to the back of the spar. I put all the extra holes in that was needed, so it's got a 1-inch spacing now. Centered it up just perfect. When it's right in the center there, the ribs are all straight and square. So now I've drilled to the bottom of the fuselage. I'm going to pull the bulkhead out. I'll leave the spar in there for now. Go ahead and pull the bulkhead out. I will deburr all of the holes, and then I'm going to go ahead and rivet it to the floor of the fuselage, because that will still let me take the spar out as long as I leave it clecoed. There's the nice line of rivets on the bottom where that bulkhead's held in. Inside, she's fastened to the floor. Still clecoed onto the spar, and boy, did that stiffen everything up. Now, when you're doing all this, you of course need to measure across, keep everything square, level. The spar is perpendicular to the rail of the fuselage and all that. The only thing that I have noticed, and I have the ability to measure stuff over and over and over, and it still look crooked when I put it together. So I do a lot of double check, eyeball and stuff, make sure it lines up. And the only thing I see that is a little bit off is this end of the rear spar. When you sight it to the front spar, is just a little droopy out at the end. And I mean, it's literally that much. The other side looks good. So that is something that is not a problem, because when you put the skins on, you can fix all that, because the skins absolutely lock everything together. So you keep measuring all that as you're putting the skins on, drilling and clecoing on that. So that's all for this video. Got that in. Of course, got a lot of drilling on the top of the spars, putting all the holes for the skins in. So I'll do that. I think the next video will probably be fastening the nose ribs on. And then we can get to putting the skins on, starting with the bottom one. But right now, I don't have enough clecos to even start with the skins. I've got some more coming later this week, so when they get here, we'll go ahead and get the nose ribs on, then we can start with the skins. Until then, thanks for watching.